Rett syndrome is a disorder that typically results from a mutation on the MECP2 gene. This gene is responsible for producing proteins that are foundational in a process of switching off a group of genes. With a mutation on the MECP2 gene, proteins aren't prohibited from being produced, and large amounts are produced, which causes issues in the brain and nervous system.
The MECP2 gene lies on the X chromosome. In females, each cell has 2 X chromosomes, but only one is activated. This process is completely random and, in a textbook example, would lead to 50% of the cells being affected and 50% being unaffected. For males, they only have 1 X chromosome, so all cells are affected. This usually results in prenatal death or death shortly after birth for males.
Roughly every 1 in 10,000 people are affected in the world. The treatment that currently is available only targets making the symptoms better, not actually curing the disease. There are, however, some mouse studies that show that activating the medial prefrontal cortex helps reverse cognitive and respiratory symptoms.
Rett syndrome is typically diagnosed between the ages of 6 and 18 months. Although the child presents symptoms such as a placid behavior, difficulties nursing, a weak cry, low muscle tone, and slowed head growth, they typically go unnoticed by parents. The key symptom is sudden regression or stagnation of development. Personally, I had never heard about the disorder before, and now that I know what it is and how devastating it is, I wish that awareness was widespread. At the beginning of researching, we were having issues with the disorder because our sources have said that it solely affects females rather than affecting both genders. After some research, we discovered that males are also affected but typically die before being diagnosed, so many people associate the syndrome with women. I hope that soon there will be enough research that the syndrome can be directly treated instead of just the symptoms.
Similarly to Maria, I had never heard of the disorder before, but I was very interested in learning about it based off of a simple Google search. After thoroughly researching this topic, I have become very interested in learning as much as possible about Rett syndrome, and I hope that eventually there will be more research geared towards finding a cure. As an SLP, we will be working with treating symptoms, not the root cause. One of the biggest things we would work with the client about would probably be alternative communication options, such as picture boards or a communication device. I think it will be cool to see the person learning how to communicate with their family. But we will also have to help the child with any breathing and swallowing difficulties which they might have.
The biggest thing for me is that these families will be confused and scared, and I need to be as aware of the disorder as possible to help the families get through this difficult time in their life. It'll be hard, but a good challenge to help the child thrive as much as they can and help the family become accustomed to how their lives have changed. There will be issues with communication, transportation, and feeding, and all of these things will need to be addressed at least in part by a speech-language pathologist.